Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. I want to welcome everybody to 365 Deep Dive. He's John Moore. I'm Andy Honeycutt. And today we have a very special friend on the show, Mr. Mark Kashman.
Woo!
So we've got an exciting episode lined up for you. We are fresh off the heels of Microsoft Ignite, the flagship conference of the year. A lot of news, a lot of announcements. And we're going to dive into all of that. But before we dive in to what's new in the world of SharePoint, OneDrive, Teams, and more, let's talk about what's new in our worlds. So welcoming to the show, Mark. This is a little bit different than I think John and I have experienced in the past. I know we were very fortunate to be participants and join in the show with you on the interzone. And so now the shoe's kind of on the other foot, or the microphone's on the other side. Welcome. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well. Thank you for having me. And I feel the hot seat now. You know, I've been a guest before, but it's more likely the role of me not being the guest. But for all of your broadcasts where I feel like I've been in your comments and listening, you know, kind of doing a little work and then tuning in and just, you know, having fun in the comments, it is where the action is, in the comments, as I can see already on screen. But it's nice for, you know, many-time commenter, first-time guester, I guess is what I am.
Well, we're super excited to have you here today. I know we've been talking about this one for a little while, getting it all lined up, and really excited to dive into the topics today. But let's talk about what's new. What's going on with you, John? What's going on with you? It's Thanksgiving week here in the U.S., kind of a low-key day for us as we are coming off the Ignite season. But let's talk about what's changed here recently and some of the things that we're seeing.
Yeah, I'll start because I want to get rid of this kind of big giant box that's in front of me, just to get the, you know, the sort of the elephant in the room. I think this is actually representative of the elephant's trunk. So my news is, and it's not new news, but just to be clear, I now am outside of Microsoft working with Simpraxis Consulting, which is a wonderful group of people, all experts in their own right, as they like to describe. I've heard Julie Turner, one of my now new colleagues, describe we're a Venn diagram where the overlap is, you know, the expertise of the team, but we all have our own specialties. So I am now in the consultant world, as I believe a lot of the people that I've worked with in the past outside of Microsoft are consultants. So they may be chuckling at me, you know, newbie consultant person. Gave myself a full long title to be descriptive. I always liked being descriptive versus being sort of, you know, fanciful. But my title's gotten a little bit longer. The name of my company's gotten a little bit longer, and my hair's gotten more gray. So all is good. Very happy where I landed. They're a great bunch of people. They were very kind and generous to bring me in, and I'm in a deep learning curve. So it's nice to be always a good subject matter expert, but in learning mode 100%.
Yeah, when I heard the news, I think I sent John a message immediately. I was really excited for you. That's a great team to be joining. Yeah. And as I kind of think about it, I think this comment kind of winds it up. It's like the Avengers are assembling over at Simpraxis. You got quite a crew going over there. I talked with Julie and Mark a couple of weeks ago about it. So congratulations. Really, really happy for you.
Thank you. And I'll also put the shout out to the community. It was an interesting couple of weeks for a moment there in May, not to make a long story longer, but it was almost sometimes a little startling in such a positive way. The response from the community and all of the support was amazing. It really was heartfelt, and it sometimes almost took me a little hard to read because it was, you know, so many really kind things of things that people appreciated over the years and hopes for the future. And, you know, I actually had to take a break just so that I could not well up, you know, too much. So I have always had a huge spot in my heart and more for the community, but I was really grateful just how things landed, both in how they turned out, but at the time, when you're in the moment, it really is true. The community brings a lot of support, and I felt it big time.
Yeah, it is an exceptional community. I think we've said it many times, the best community in tech. And so to your point, though, I've been in this community now for 15 years, and it's been such a welcoming community, but really it is the epitome of sharing is caring. and I saw the community outreach and the support, and I'm really happy for you with where you landed. But I'm even more happy that you landed here with us today.
Hey,
Yeah.
this is a big part of it. I get to say whatever I want now. I'm not under the, I still have to, appreciate any NDA for sure. But the reality of, there were always wonderful things at Microsoft. They treated me very well. But, there was sometimes an opinion that I would have liked to have shared or shared a little bit more broadly, just for the sake of, landing things a little bit more easily, or people actually understanding. Maybe that's not something you want to use just yet.
Sure.
So it's interesting to be in that space now.
Yeah.
It's probably way different being on the outside. So we're going to dive into some stuff here today, live without a safety net, as we tend to do.
That's
So
right.
you can walk that tightrope along with us as we dive into our Ignite content. Now, in talking and kind of getting things set up for today, we went back through the book of news, and we're going to bring that up, and we're going to walk through a number of the announcements there. But in looking at the content there, and also just going back over the last like 6 months or so, there's been a lot of subtle things that are coming from like the SharePoint and OneDrive world. And that's really what we wanted to lean into today, because John and I have been spending so much time in Copilot land that sometimes it's hard to go back to the roots because of the fire hose that is Copilot. So we're going to take it a little bit of a step back, but I'm really looking to get your perspective and some input and some best practices around some of the things that we're going to talk about today. Because I know some of the work that you've done over the years with like List and News and SharePoint and Viva, there's a big story there that we can tell. And a lot of times it's not just the how we do it in this one thing, it's the process. So I'm really looking forward to getting some of your perspective on some of the process and the workflow. John and I were also talking, there's going to be a little bit of workflow we want to dive into with like posting news announcements and updates. And we kind of geek out on personal knowledge management system, PKMs, and like our workflows. So we'd like to see a little bit of your PKM and like how you're synthesizing information and getting ready to publish that.
That sounds great, and I love new acronyms. Bring on the acronyms. PKM.
We need an AI to help us with all like the acronyms to apply it in context of the conversation that we're in.
I feel like it's a new feature of Apple Watch. I got to start my PKM. Hold on one second. Okay, I'm in PKM mode. Go.
Somebody asked in the comments if there was going to be puns, and I almost responded back like, Mark is the legend of puns before Gen AI existed, right? Like the Gen AI is kind of like leveled the playing field in some ways, like people making dad jokes.
Give me a pun.
Like
Give me 10
when
puns.
we were writing the description for this show, we said a Mark Kashman style pun. Give us some ideas for it, and it went right in, and it still just didn't capture the humanity of Mark's pun intelligence that he has.
Well, it is whatever flourishes and comes out. It's not a guarantee. There's nothing written down, but I love that. I guess that's certainly a part of how my brain works and what people know. I love when people send me something like, "Oh, you'll get a kick out of this one," and then it's a good pun. So we'll do our best. I saw Diego had put that out, so we'll do our best, Diego.
Love it. So yeah, Ignite just happened last week. We all attended virtually. We were talking about that a little bit beforehand. So Mark, you watched it remotely as well, and I have to admit I was pretty busy the whole week. So there was a lot of sessions I wasn't able to make it to that I wanted to. We've kind of caught up on the book of news, but I think it lands a little bit better if we can get hands-on to some certain things that like, oh, these were announced, or I noticed that a lot of the end user features in Ignite were kind of announcements of things. It was almost like putting a spotlight on something that had already been out for a little bit of time. And that's stuff like the knowledge agent, or like crafting FAQs with Copilot, stuff that's like, okay, we've had that, but it hasn't really had a spotlight on it. So we actually got to see what it looks like mechanically, and now it's in our tenant as well, so we can demo it today. And I thought that broader than just theoretical longer term looking stuff, maybe some of the stuff that's more real world today, like if you're in Frontier for Copilot, you'll have a lot of these features today. Some of them, even if you're not in Frontier, have rolled out to full general availability. So Andy, I don't know, where do you want to kind of start on some of these big themes that we saw from Ignite?
I have just one comment that I think is maybe a little insider baseball. It's not tricky by all means, but when you think about what is Ignite, it's a time to make big announcements, but it's also time to make declarative statements like this is a real thing. It's moved from preview to GA. So that was the big knowledge agent. They've refined a ton of stuff as far as how it works and the performance and reliability. But the news, to your point, John, was like, is knowledge agent new? Nope. But it moving to GA means now, if you have heard about it, you should be able to get it, not just because you're in gosh, I forget. Now that Frontier is out, I forget. You got standard release and you've got the earlier one,
release,
targeted
yeah.
release. Yeah. So it doesn't have to be like, oh, we're not in targeted release. I don't even know what you're talking about. It's kind of those big milestones. Or like the FAQ, I think they brought it up because it's gotten fairly good use, and now it's got a couple of new features and refinements. So, they put a little spotlight, like you said, and I think that is what Ignite is for. It's not just going to be news and announcements, but it's going to be some, milestone declarations so that they can hopefully get more visibility on things that they've put a lot of time and effort into.
Yeah, some of these things are like more prime time now, and I noticed that the cycle, after you go through a few of these, as an administrator, you'll notice that a lot of things get announced right at the fiscal year. And then as you're in previews and things like that, and you get towards Ignite, they kind of show that it's like ready for prime time. And that's in that gap of time is whenever Microsoft will find some like customer success stories and things like that, where it's like, okay, you knew that this feature was coming or was a thing. Now at Ignite, we can show you how these like 3 organizations or 5 organizations are using it in real time. And I think we've got a few good examples of that today, where like AI page crafting or FAQs, Andy and I, we've been using those in our day jobs for the past couple months, so now we can kind of show that off and talk about like how we're using it. So people who are not in like the Frontier programs, they're just now getting their hands on it. Maybe we'll give you guys a couple of ideas to inspire you to use it for the first time.
That's good.
I'd like to add one thing to Mark's comment here about Ignite. And I actually heard this on the Sync Up podcast, the most recent episode, where they were recapping the big OneDrive and SharePoint event that you just held like a month ago. Some of the work that they announce in these events are things that have been behind the scenes working for years, and they're like finally seeing it like release, and they're finally seeing like the efforts of that starting to come to fruition. And so it's an opportunity for them to go and talk about that work and to celebrate that work and like all the effort that's gone into it. And that really kind of puts some things in perspective, because like we get a lot of new features. We got a lot of stuff coming. We got a lot of previews and targeted releases and frontiers, but like we don't always pay attention to how much effort and how long-term some of that roadmap is to actually get to the point where people can put hands on it and start working with it. So it's kind of like, you're leaving the nest. You got this thing. It's like, all right, here we go. We're out in the wild. Let's see what happens. And so that was a really cool perspective to take away from the guys on the Sync Up podcast.
Yeah.
As I was listening to that earlier this week.
I'll join you 100%, specifically to the one feature in OneDrive that took me probably about 2 or 3 times of hearing it and then eventually being able to try it, which is the concept around the hero link. And if this landed quicker for other people, then I just was thick-headed about it for a little bit. But just to understand what the hero link was, you create one link and then you manage everything behind the scenes, so that link that I sent somebody an email, if I change their permissions or they send it to somebody else who should or shouldn't have permissions, and I don't want to generate a new link and send it to that person, the hero link, aka the one that then doesn't change, still hits the file and then asks the question, who has permissions to see this? This is the link to the file, but now let me do the permissions check. Instead of wrapping the permissions within unique URLs, the hero link, again, it is a very simple notion to be able to do that for files, of course, beyond OneDrive, but it's a OneDrive-driven feature. And it was, took me a second to understand how it worked. So in that case, I appreciated that they kept mentioning it. Didn't just assume that now everybody knew what it was. And I think they had a couple iterations in terms of how it worked. In addition to, that sharing dialogue that has evolved almost every 6 months. It seems like it's getting more simple, even though they still, in a right way, position it as simplified sharing.
Yeah, and I was just searching for the hero link because I heard it at Ignite. I heard it in the September event for OneDrive, and I thought that it had been announced at the September event. But to your point, it actually was announced in May, back in May, by Michaela, who we had on the show a while back, actually. Looks like it was the initial announcement that, to your point, or what you're talking about, Mark, is that now, rather than having different links with different settings, you have one link to kind of rule them all, right? And then your particular settings, whatever like most level of access you have, that you kind of plinko your way through the permissions, that will apply to you when you use that one hero link. And I think the biggest point that a lot of people might miss on that is it's even the URL out of the address bar. So like that's the thing I've seen break the most for people with OneDrive is they just go up to the URL bar, they copy that and then send it to somebody. And it's like, no, you can't do that. And then you got to explain how everything, and people would get upset about it. And I'd say, well, that's how Dropbox works. That's how Google Drive works, but they're like, but that's not how like a YouTube link works or a tweet or something like that. Right. I just grab the URL and send it. Now with that hero link though, you will be able to just copy and paste the URL out of your browser directly. And then all that permission stuff, you don't have to worry about it. It will apply though the permission level of access when they click on that link to open it.
Yeah, I think it gets to the base of what does URL stand for. It's a unique resource locator. Look, there's the file. And then the file has the awareness of who can access it or not. But to get to it, it's right there. It's just pointed to the same location.
And it's been years coming, people like wanting this type of thing and having to like peel back the onion layers of like how permissions work in SharePoint. This is going to simplify it a lot. Is that GA? What did they announce at the September and Ignite announcements? Do you guys know?
I believe the hero link has GA'd. If that's not true, that's just because I'm not necessarily as close to the fold as I used to. But I know that the simplified sharing, a lot
John,
of the UI elements.
If you want to bring over to my screen.
Yeah, if you happen to have it, I was going to see. What does the roadmap say? So it says that the rollout started. Or no, the rollout is going to start in April, but it's in development now.
Is that for the hero link or is that for a lot of the new
It looks like it wraps up a lot of things.
Yeah. No, but there it is. Send the URL from the browser. Yep. Well, it's again, I at least now fully understand what it is and the mechanisms of the pattern of how it works. And the value hopefully will be you're just generating a lot fewer unique URLs, but the smarts and the value of how it manages permissions is definitely fully intact.
Yeah, that'll be huge for all of us.
And I will say this regarding the hero link. I would neither confirm nor deny that there was a standing ovation when we saw this for the first time.
Okay.
You were in your home office, you stood up and started clapping, Andy.
Like I said, I will neither confirm nor deny.
Andy, blink 3 times if you're okay.
Yeah.
Well, was there anything else? There was a great session at Ignite that was a kind of summary of things that, if you've been tuning in, have been shared. But I think it was Arvind, Gaia, and Arwa, and they walked through sync sharing and some of the Copilot innovation. And there was a number of things that were a repeat. I think there were a couple things, and I note that Ami is here also in the audience. He mentioned that there was a big announcement that I remembered from that session around now having the ability to sync up to 500,000 files.
Holy cow.
Maybe is not news to folks like you, but that one felt, something that they would hit with issues with sync. There were a lot of sync, highlights that they put in as far as the sync experience and then the actual end user experience on Mac and Windows when you're on the desktop. It was pretty cool. So it felt like there were a couple little nuggets, even with SharePoint. I think there was a couple of nudge forward nuggets, but nothing that was, big news that made the big keynote. But I think there was things that, at the Jeff Teeper level for his innovation session, there were a few things that he touched on that I hadn't heard of or hadn't even known, where they were in the rollout cycle. There were elements for those that focus on OneDrive and SharePoint that were new and sort of solidifying progress milestone markers. And then probably some things that were just sort of like, yeah, heard that before.
Yeah. To stay on OneDrive for a little bit, we talked about like the hero link. One of the things that I've been excited about with OneDrive has been the audio overviews that you can build. So you can take any file in your OneDrive, not any file, but a document, a PDF, maybe a PowerPoint, certain types of files that have textual, like context in them. And you can click on them, and under the Copilot flyout, you would be able to create an audio overview. And we demoed this a while back, but I've seen that it's been starting to get enhancements with more like tuning and tweaks that you can do. So if I were to take something here like what's new with Copilot, and this is a transcript that I had pulled out of a recording that we did. If I right click on it or do like the ... dots, you can go here and there's a Copilot section. If we go into that Copilot, there's the create an audio overview, and hopefully this will work for me and show me those options if I select it.
Yeah.
Nope, it didn't come up that time. So what I've seen is that rolling out, sometimes it has come up with a little picker in the middle that will say you can choose which people you want to have going back and forth. It's like it's Ava for both of them, the female voice, but the male voice changes from like one name to another.
Does it pop up when you switch to the podcast
I'm wondering
style?
if I switch to podcast style, no.
Yeah.
So there's three things that I've noticed though in that window. One is, what's the style that you want? Do you want a dialogue or do you want a like summary, I think? And the dialogue is the podcast host style. Then you could pick the voices that you want. And then at the bottom, there was like a length area that's coming in. I think it's in fully rolled out in notebooks at this time. But that's really handy because you can say, I want it to be like less than 5 minutes, or I want it to be more than, I think it's like 12 minutes for the long side. And you could choose short, medium, or long and kind of fine tune that. I was hoping it would show up in OneDrive, but that's one that I've seen it for a couple days and then saw it go away and then saw it again for a little bit.
They're flighting test features. I have a silly story that was one of those I couldn't help myself kind of stories. But I had listened to one of the podcasts from the OneDrive team on their Sync Up podcast. And it was an episode talking with a couple of the PMs that focus on the audio overview feature. So it was really nice. They went into all the details of how it was. So I got this concept of, what if I took the transcript from the Sync Up episode, created that as a Word document, went into my tenant and created an audio overview of the audio overview podcast and made it into a podcast style. So it was, silly meta moment, but it was actually really good. The transcript it was verbatim.
It's like podcast inception.
It's podcast inception. And I published it with a little teardown, of my experience, like you were just describing, John, things you like, things that, could have been, maybe they're thinking about the shortening of things because it always felt a little long. And then embedded that as just an audio file within the Substack. And, it was just kind of silly, but it was kind of a, if I hadn't just listened to the episode about the episode, AKA the document created into an audio file, was super helpful. And, if I was driving and I clicked for 4 to 9 minutes or whatever, instead of the 45-minute episode of Sync Up, which I do encourage you to listen to because they do a nice job. It was just that. It was exactly what it was supposed to be. And if I hadn't just heard it, it wouldn't felt like I was just repeating what I just learned. But
yeah, here's a picture of that thing that I was talking about. It's always trying to describe a UI without just showing it is always really difficult. But this is what I've seen like you said, flighting for a little bit in OneDrive and then kind of going back and forth depending on, whatever data center my browser happens to load from that day.
Have you
But
seen
you'll
this
be able to
feature
pick
in
those
Teams?
4 things. The audio recaps, the meeting feature.
Does it use the same UI? I haven't paid attention.
It does not. So this UI, this is right now I'm showing notebooks. This is the same UI that I've seen in OneDrive as well. And what I've done is if I do a single file, like that one transcript of that one meeting, what it'll do is I'll just do it from OneDrive and I'll pick my options. Yeah, somebody's playing it. Is that yours, Andy?
No, I don't think so.
Did it auto start?
Who's playing? Oh, you guys must not have heard that. I heard Ava start talking in my ear. It was from another tab. Because the 2 minutes passed. But if it's a single file, I'll do it in OneDrive. It is a multiple files. What I'll do is I'll drop them into a notebook. And what I've started doing, this is another one of those like new features by Ignite. We figure out how we're actually using these features. And what I've started to do is at EY, I put on a What's New and Next live stream every month. We have about 10,000 people attend, and it's split over 2 different sessions. We do one in the morning for like Europe, and then one in the evening for like Australia, Japan, APAC. And rather than having 2 hours of stuff for people to watch through, what I do is I grab the transcripts of both those live streams, I drop those and the slide deck into a new notebook, and then I generate an audio overview like this, and I put in the custom prompt. This is a catch up for people who couldn't attend the session, and it kind of tunes that intro to like, hey, if you missed out on our session, here's what you need to catch up in 5 minutes or less. And I do a shorter version. I do it casual as a dialogue, and then I put in just like, this is a recap. And we take our 2 hours of what's new and next and make it about 4.5 minutes in a podcast. And then to your point where you put it on like Substack, in mine, I'm using SharePoint, and I'm doing a page on SharePoint with the MP3 file as a recap next to the full recording.
I like the way you were describing this, because some of the buttons, if not all of them, feel like if I knew how to write a good prompt, I could call out the things that I want for it to be a dialogue with a professional tone, not too long, maybe keep it under 4 minutes. And I want to hear, you have to know the voices. I think that'd be the only, like, who can I mention to be one of my co-hosts? But it feels like it abstracts the having to write a lot and know the things that you can ask it to do. I know, Andy, you do a ton of prompt work, and kind of once you understand the conversation you can have with the chat and how the outcome is influenced by it. But I really do like some of these things where it's a little bit more button choices, because it's kind of abstracting and highlighting the art of the possible without it having to be a really long prompt that the things that you can or can't write.
I've said a version of that for like 2 years. I'm a broken record at this point.
Oh no.
How do you know what to order if you don't know what's on the menu? And I think Adobe got that right with Firefly in the very first iteration, because in the sidebar, they had some parameters that you could define from a couple of menu choices, and it just gave you an idea of what you could ask it to do. And suggested prompts give us a little bit of that context, and I think we're starting to see that backfilled a little bit with some of the recent and relevance with the task that you're doing, and like how you're like invoking Copilot, but we still have that blank menu, and we're not quite sure what we can ask it to do. And so just a little bit of nudging can point people in the right direction, and you don't need to be a super prompt engineer. That's why I like this menu here. So you can customize
people might not realize that you could make it shorter or longer. You have to ask for that,
Yeah.
And having it right there kind of prompts them, like, you may not have known that you could just do this with a prompt. We're going to give you a button to do it.
John, on what you were just on.
So this is that Teams one that you were talking about, Mark. It is under the Meet app. So if you go into Teams, you guys are going to want to open up the flyout and then search for the app called Meet.
The meatball menu. And look Meet.
The meatball menu. I had heard with 2 E's.
I had heard the team was going to be putting a little bit more meat on the bones in the app in the future.
Exactly. And I know Andy has been a big advocate of this. He usually pins the Meet app. And another reason why you want to use the Meet app is the audio recaps. And this UI looks a little bit different, Mark.
Mm-hmm,
You've got, you go to the tab and then you kind of give it a time window. So like, give me the last 30 days of meetings, and then everything that has a transcript will show up. So this isn't a wonderful example because this is our MVP tenant and it's just me and Andy meeting every Monday to talk about our planning for our workshops and stuff. But you select the meetings that you want. Like, I want this one and that one, but not this other one, but I want number 5. You pick and choose, you choose a style, and it's got executive, newscast, or casual. And then you hit generate, and it will start kind of a job over here. And it's stitching together all of the summaries of those things that you selected. And it's actually going to build them into chapters. So you'll have chapters that you can navigate through. This should finish here in a second, but you'll have, it's almost like episodes along the side over here, where you'll kind of have like, this is my recap for this. Let me mute that. Because he's like, "Hi, John, how's it going?" And nobody else can hear that, and I sound schizophrenic. So, like, you have all of your episodes along the side. You have the chapters. So this is like, I don't know how long. After it's done, it'll probably tell me the total length. But like, one of them's 38 seconds. Another one's going to be like a minute or so. You can do the transcript. Once it's done, you'll be able to read through the transcript. But you'll be able to, where is it? Andy, do you know where the button went? There was like a watch on mobile button. I'm not seeing it right now. It was up in this area
last week.
Yeah, up in this area, there was a button that said like, listen on mobile. When you click that, it actually will put a QR code on the screen. So you can take your phone and you can scan it, and then you can take that on the go inside of Teams. It basically opens a Teams deep link on your phone, so that then you can go on a walk and listen to your, or 18 meetings that you skipped.
You can do like Daryl, and you can listen to it from mobile on the train when you're actually headed in the morning. And that's when I think it's really the most valuable. Like that, like people are like, audio recap, this seems like, a little gimmicky. Why would I want to do this? It's really helpful for those times when you're on the go. You're waiting in the car line to pick up your kid after school, or, you're headed between offices, or you're on campus and you're walking between like buildings. You put it on audio and you can listen to it, and you can get caught up pretty quickly with like a recap, in this case, of a couple of meetings. And I really love that modality and that freedom to like get it in a different format. Because I do some of that with the Reader app, which we've talked about a good bit. I synthesize information through Reader,
there it is.
Put it in my Reader app, and then listen to it on my mobile phone when I'm on the go. This allows me to get my work content into that kind of format now in an easy way, so that I can listen to it when I'm out and about.
That's nice.
It didn't show up because it wasn't done yet. I guess that's why.
I was just about to say, maybe it'll pop up when it ends.
Yeah. So there's that QR code.
That's nice. Can we let everybody scan it now, and then it'll be like the security permissions loophole that was missed?
Try it out. See if see if you scan this and
get into John's tenant now. Quick.
Yeah, we'll find out that it unauthenticated access to our meetings.
One thing that I've heard once or twice, and I not only from hearing it, but believe it as well, is some of the best implemented portions of Copilot are within the context of Teams meetings. I think they're the most isolated in a finite, grounded sense of how Copilot works. Is you have audio, video, transcript. You've got who's who and what's what, and it's such a grounded experience of Copilot. The Teams recap, even before it was sort of full Copilot, I think is such a useful feature. Truly, if you miss a meeting, or you're the one that owns copy pasting, the notes for somebody that wasn't able to make it, and they maybe aren't able to get to the recording because they were a guest of your meeting. That experience of seeing who talked and what they said, and being able to query it, but also these audio overviews, if it's something that you get in the habit of liking, it just seems to be where it's a great use case. It's very well executed. And, if anything, it would just be here's the goal, I think, of the level, the bar of what a Copilot experience should be. And that, not just my own opinion. I've heard a few people say that, and it doesn't mean others aren't getting there, but it does have the right buttons and the right method and the getting back to it and the why you do it. I think it wraps it up really nicely.
It's so
Not only
tightly
do I
integrated.
concur on that, John, can you go back to the meetings tab right there? And I just want to expand on that while we're here in the demo. So to Mark's point, the recap feature is great, but also think about it from a forward perspective. If you're in a series of meetings, you can use the previous meetings to prep you for the upcoming meeting, depending on what components you captured in the previous meeting. So you got the traditional meeting invite. That's the organizer sends it out. It's not collaborative. They might have a body in there. There might be an agenda. My team has a philosophy: no agenda, no attenda. So if you invite us, we don't have one of those. We might not be showing up, but that's not collaborative. That's from the organizer pushing it out. Then you have Teams meeting notes powered by Microsoft Loop, and that gives you a collaborative set of notes with an agenda, notes, and then like tasks. And now we got 2 components. If you share any files as part of that meeting, that's a third signal that Copilot can actually pull from and provide more context around. And then something, Mark, you mentioned at the beginning of the call, some meetings, the actual meeting takes place in the meeting chat and not what's actually being shown on the screen. So you can actually pull and signal the meeting chat as well from that meeting. And then we're up to like 4 signals now. And then you got the transcription and or recording that Copilot can go back through. And then lastly, you've got your, if it's a recurring series, you've got previous instances within your retention policy of that. So that gives you the ability to almost step back in time to previous meetings and relive a lot of that content, but also to use that as a way to prep moving forward. So I really think that the work that they've done here, to your point, is way more advanced than we give it credit for. We're like, oh, we're going to recap a meeting. But if you really think about it, there's a lot of signals there that can make that recap and revisiting that meeting really, really rich and really help you to step forward into the next one.
Yeah, there's so many times when you see the output of Copilot, and not to knock it too much, but sometimes it just doesn't quite deliver, what you're looking for, because it's pulling from who knows what signals and what LLM element, and it's kind of trying to do its best. Here, it's almost like a time box. Nope, we know just this, and we have really good source of information. So when you go through the recap, if I were to copy paste it and send it to a customer, these days I would review it first, of course. And most of the time in reviewing it, I tweak a few things just for, comprehension or whatever. But it is accurate. Here's what we talked about in the order that we talked about. Even if we talked about something out of order, it kind of brings it back together. And but it also gets me thinking, there are a lot of announcements or news that came beyond this that I think piggyback off of this good work that hopefully is then starting to become at least a pattern. And I saw when you were starting to mention about the mobile experience, John, there was, the notion of the different elements that are being pulled into the chat. One of the things I wanted to talk about was some of the SharePoint elements in Copilot chat. But I thought one of the things I'd love to hear if you've used it yet is this notion of what was more of a consumer feature for a while, where you could talk back to Copilot and have a conversation audibly. That's now coming to the Microsoft 365 Copilot mobile app. I believe it's probably beyond that, but the big value is if I can crack open Copilot and ask it a question in a natural language, not just the question, but to hold a conversation literally for more than just a few minutes and have it be a learning experience, asking questions. And have you played with that yet?
Dude, I did a demo of it. Yeah, I did a demo of it in for EY, and at the time, 3 weeks ago, it was only available on mobile. So if you've got the M365 Copilot app, when you open up mobile, you're going to see this little wave icon right here. That's voice mode, where you can actually talk back and forth.
Nice.
The microphone is dictation. So that's you just speaking, and then it does like text to speech or speech to text. But it's also available now on the web and the desktop app too. So you can enable it in your browser or on the desktop. The demo I did, for those of you guys who are, in your adoption teams and you're going to share it, is I was demoing on Wednesday, and Friday I was going to New York for a trip. And all of this was like in the archive of my email, because I keep like inbox 0. So I went on my phone and I mirrored it to the screen. I don't have Reflector installed right now, but I mirrored it on the screen and then demoed like, hey, Copilot, I'm going to be, flying to New York tomorrow. Can you give me the traffic from Kearney to KCI Airport? Also, what's the weather going to be like in New York? I don't remember what hotel I'm going to be in, but I need you to check my hotel and make sure that my Marriott Bonvoy account is attached to it so I get my points. I'm going to be at the Times Square office for Microsoft doing a Future Forward event. So what's the walking distance from the hotel to the airport or to the office? And I went through, like, rambled all of that. And then it came back with, like, hey, I've got your info. Your booking number is this. Your Marriott is attached to it. It's going to be this kind of weather, so you might dress this way. Oh, I looked up the clients that are going to be in the office, so I think you should wear a button down instead of a polo, stuff like that. And it was a pretty impressive demonstration. So if you guys out there are, like, looking for things to demo voice mode, try kind of putting yourself in the shoes of somebody working at your company that's always traveling and kind of, like, send yourself some, like, fake itinerary stuff in your email, or if you have a real itinerary, that will kind of blow your user socks off.
Wow.
Because it was really cool how it came back.
I say we go without a net for the first maybe demo here of you using the voice chat, asking Copilot what it thought about Microsoft Ignite 2025 or something to that
Yeah,
effect.
sure. Yeah. Let's try it out. Let me see if I can. I'm going to unshare and reshare with audio so you guys can hear my thing real quick. So let me stop sharing, and then I'm going to reshare. Reshare, also share audio. Oh, entire screen with audio. There we go. All
It's
right.
the little things that make us excited.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Well, in Edge, it let me share my screen with audio. That's new. Okay. Hey, Copilot. Ignite 2025 was last week in San Francisco, and I'm curious if you could help us with, what your thoughts were on Ignite. I'm going to be having Mark Kashman, formerly a product marketing manager on the SharePoint team, on a live stream podcast today to talk about the exciting things with Ignite. So I would like you to lean in a little bit to the SharePoint, OneDrive, Microsoft Loop, maybe Clipchamp, all the collaborative things of Ignite, and give us some, like, talking points that we can talk about during our live stream.
So from what I've gathered, a big focus at Ignite was how all these
Can
collaborative
you guys hear
tools,
that?
SharePoint, OneDrive,
yeah.
Loop, are coming together
yeah.
to create a seamless content collaboration experience. For SharePoint and OneDrive, they're doubling down on making it easier to tie in with other apps like Loop and Teams, basically more real-time co-authoring and content portability across those platforms. Loop's getting tighter integrations with SharePoint pages too, so you can embed those collaborative components anywhere. And Clipchamp got some love, connecting better with OneDrive for easier video content collaboration. It's all about making teamwork smoother and
Okay, so I'm going to interrupt you there
across the board.
because,
When you
like,
chat with
I don't really
Mark,
care
you can
about the last
dive
thing you were
into
saying.
how these
And it should interrupt it. There we go. So one thing I see you're missing on Clipchamp is that Clipchamp introduced Sora 2 generating video. I'm curious why you didn't mention that, and can you tell me about that feature specifically?
Great catch. So Sora 2 is OpenAI's latest video generation model, and it's now integrated into Microsoft 365 Copilot. That means you can use natural language prompts to generate videos right inside the Microsoft ecosystem.
So it's kind of hallucinated a little bit on that because it's
I was
like it
gonna
didn't
say-
give me
I
quite
was
as
gonna
good
say.
of the details I wanted.
That sounds like enterprise slop.
It kind of did. Yeah, it was like not like it should have said like, well, it's in the Create app and that's where, it's in Frontier right now. You can't actually get to it if you're outside of Frontier. So yeah, but that's kind of what it looks and sounds like. Two things that we're missing that you'll get on the mobile experience. One is you get a CC button in the top corner on mobile, so you can choose if you want to see the text or not. kind of scrolling through. The second one is it'll say 1x, and you can speed up or slow down. So during my demo, I like to do 1.5 or 2x speed because it feels really slow at 1x. So on the browser, though, it looks like we don't have those adjustments quite yet. So
it's early days. I'm excited to see it, but I have to point out, it sounds like I'm listening to the US radio host Delilah, and it's like a late night radio show. So, that's the mindset that kind of puts me in.
Yeah, so I'll run that same prompt here with GPT-5 on, just as text, and see what it comes back with. The other thing I'm a little bit disappointed in that demo is that it didn't give me any like link references to like the book of news or specific announcements. So I'm curious. See, this is more like structured for what I would use for our show notes, right? It's bullet points and things like that. So, it's a different style, right? It's conversational on the other one, so it's going to be paragraphs, versus here it's going to be bullet lists and a little bit more structured like a document style.
This is a great cheat sheet. And I think with the change that you made of your audio, there's a good echo now, John.
Oh no, okay.
But just mentioning it. I don't know if anybody else is hearing that.
Yes. It's he's sharing his audio. There we go.
Yeah.
That was good. I thought we could use that as a cheat sheet of what should we focus on next. I thought one area, and I will selfishly or honestly say it's the one that I'm beginning to understand a little bit about, but it's probably the furthest away from my wheelhouse besides a lot like all the Azure and whatever announcements. But the one that seems to be pretty close to home because it encompasses any kind of agent on the agent spectrum is the Agent 365, the management of it. And curious to get your take on it from an IT perspective and just the value of, the I think common feedback that they must have been hearing was our people are creating agents everywhere, and we are getting a little bit stressed because we don't have visibility, we don't have a way to report or manage on it. So it feels like they knew that, and the work I think comes from the Power Platform team, but it's holistic and covers more than just agents that would be created from Power Platform. But I'm very, very in listening mode of understanding this one. So curious if you, either John or Andy, know a little bit more about this enough to share.
Let's actually pull up the book of news and we can talk about it.
Do you have the link to it?
So I've already got it queued up if you want to see
one of the biggest announcements was about Agent 365, and I'm hopefully optimistic about it. We've seen a lot of, or gotten a lot of like promises, about things. And I feel Microsoft in general tends to put something out there and then figure out how to deal with the sprawl on the backside, and that's certainly what happened with agents here. It's what we saw with like Power Automate and other things too. Like everybody can create a team and now you've got like a million teams. We're definitely seeing that with agents, and we haven't really learned our collective lesson yet with rolling this features out. At EY, we're seeing a lot of agents getting created, and of course, a lot of duplication is coming out of that. And what we've done, and what I think a lot of other organizations are going to do, is that we generally have led to having Copilot Studio Lite, or the artist formerly known as Agent Builder. That is available to everybody with a Copilot license. And it's like, okay, cool. So you can make an agent that works for you and is helpful on a personal basis, and you can share it with friends and family, right? So on the sharing view, we've disabled org-wide sharing, but we allow sharing by a specific name or like individual or group of people. And so we're having like small sharing, but we're not allowing publishing at that level. Then you go to Copilot Studio and it's like, okay, Copilot Studio, you have to request an environment in Power Platform. That way we've captured what you're doing, what features you want to use, what's your use case. And we've manually been able to look at all of the other people building agents and say, your agent sounds a lot like this agent. Why don't you guys connect and talk to each other? And it's been very manual. What I'm hopeful about with Agent 365 is seeing some of those dashboards and like kind of a unified inventory of agents, hopefully leading to it's a fine balance between I want to reduce sprawl because I want to make it in the user's face enough that they are creating something very similar to somebody else, but I also don't want to like stifle innovation completely and lock it down. And it's like you got to find that gray area. I'm hopeful that Agent 365 will allow us to, you know, to make people aware of agents so that they don't recreate the wheel. I know that a lot of people in like our data governance and our like data scientists at the IT level are more interested in like how many people are using these things and are they providing like a return on investment? What's the value the agent's providing? Me, from like an adoption standpoint, I'm a little bit more concerned about, you know, I don't want like 18 agents that do the exact same thing and 17 people wasted time building them. Andy, what do you think about it?
We're on parallel paths there. We're like pretty much in step with you where you're at now. We want the freedom for people to be able to create these, but we also don't want to duplicate the effort. We want to templatize what we can, use that as a starting point for like the next thing. And any tools that can help us with that are very much welcome as we try to figure this out at scale and in mass. So on that topic, I'm showing the book of news here. I put the link in the chat. You should be able to access it. It's up on the screen here. But let's actually dive into that agent and talk a little bit about it. So the first thing I want to point out with the book of news is the instance summaries. That's the first thing that I saw whenever I went to visit this the other day. And so you get a couple of different ways to take this in. I'm going to do this as a builder. Go ahead and turn on those kind of summaries. And then I'm just going to jump down in the table of contents. And I love the table of contents. It's super helpful to like navigate through this. But there's the Microsoft Agent 365. The control pane for agents, and you can see like the instance summary that they've generated off of that.
This is so much more modern than like, remember
So
we used to
much.
download like a 400 page PDF.
Amazing.
News.
It's kind of, you know, using what you're promoting. This is somehow leveraging AI or some component to at least do a little bit of that, save people time and target their attention, but to build it into not just the news that you go read about something that's kind of cool, but to actually have the experience driven by it. That was a big new addition to the book of news.
Yeah. The interactivity and being able to quickly synthesize the information in here, and even now to like summarize it and tailor it to like a specific audience, that was a brilliant idea. So whoever came up with that one, I'm going to give you the virtual high five on that. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So Agent 365, a registry for tracking all agents, granular access control, real-time visualization of agent interactions, interoperability with M365 apps. And we can do that basically from one interface. Admittedly, I haven't seen if this is available in our tenant yet, John. We can try to pull that up in a minute, or if you want to try to pull that up on your screen, we can switch back into it. It is part of the Frontier program, so it should be in that Frontier early access, as we can see from here. But anything I can do to get that inventory to like what you were saying a minute ago, because we've got 3 different kinds of agents we have to support. We've got Copilot Chat, Studio Lite agents, we've got SharePoint agents, and now we got Copilot Studio agents that we have to support. I want to look across the organization and figure out where there's common agents in use. And based off of that, then maybe I can get those people together and we can skill up together. Or we can take lessons from their agent, turn that into a knowledge base or a KB article, and then we have that as institutional knowledge that we can use for the next group that has something. My ideal state is to build a agents center of excellence powered by a communications site. We're going to hubify it as well. And we're going to use that communication site as a storefront, essentially. And we're going to showcase some of the templatized agents that are out there, kind of the art of the possible, but also as a quick way to spin up a new agent for another team that needs a similar features and capabilities. But we're also going to use that as a way to manage intake for those larger ask, those agents that need more advanced capabilities, that have more advanced tooling, extensibility, working with some of the advanced features with like topics and generative topics and those features. So like that's kind of the way we're looking at it. If I can use something like this to help manage that,
Yeah.
that's going to be huge for a small team.
I love the scenario that you just, and if I heard you right, it kind of got me thinking, what if I went to a page that was, around, talking with experts, and you had agents that represented different topics. Could be HR type scenario. It could be IT scenario. It could just be come learn about our big campaign or product launch. And, there are different elements. I have a question that's behind this, but imagine you could somehow interact with the various agents to ask different questions. They're very specialized agents, so you can get really good, crisp responses and interaction. But I wonder if in any agent that you could create, and don't break any of your NDA if you already know this, because I don't, but I'm curious that talkback ability where you could have a live conversation with, in this instance, Copilot is where they're starting. But to be able to build that into your own agent so that people could have a natural back and forth conversation, that kind of like there's got to be an API for that then make it easy to add to your individual agent, big or small.
Yeah, so there is, I'm trying to get to it right now, but inside of Copilot Studio, when you are creating your agent, there's a settings cog in the top corner. When you click on that, that's where you get your generative AI capabilities. One of those is, do you want to allow voice? And it will enable that voice capability. It's also places where you can say like, I do or I don't want like legacy models. So if you're using like an older GPT model, it will give you an extra 30 days before it kind of pushes you to the newer model.
Interesting.
One of the other things, though, you talked about these agents talking to other agents. Inside that settings for Copilot Studio for your specific agent, that's where you make it available or not available to other agents. There's, I wish it was like loading more than just a blank screen. There we go. So if I can get into one of my agents that I've played with, go into settings, and then hopefully it loads up. I haven't made a new agent in this in a while. So generative AI, that's, are you going to use generative AI or the old stuff? This one right here, this is that connected agents. So that's this multi-agent orchestration. If you turn that on, it makes your agent available so that if somebody else builds an agent and your agent is shared with them, they would be able to add it to their agent network, basically. So like we turned that on, and then somewhere in here, voice is along the side. Don't leave. Let's save it first. Thank you, Microsoft, for catching me.
So I while you're doing this, I'm thinking pitching this idea to the European SharePoint conference or the Microsoft 365 community conference, that they could have little mini virtual AMAs, and they could build out subject matter experts based on their content that they're presenting at the show, and that you could go in a virtual space, which isn't as exciting as a real AMA. But you could have conversations with the experts through their content that they're presenting.
So the first thing I picture when you mention that is actually from The Big Bang Theory, when Sheldon was afraid of getting sick, and so he sent a robot with an iPad on a Segway remote control to go interact with the world. And so I see these things floating around like the conference floor, and like, you can just walk up to it and start having a conversation.
Yeah. So I turned on that of make it available to other agents. That's what I have to do on my end to make somebody else be able to connect to me. But if like Andy created an agent and he also ticked that on, when I'm building my agent on the main screen, you'll have this agent area, and I would be able to add agents, and I would add a new child agent and be able to pick like Andy's because he shared it with me.
Yeah.
And that's how I would kind of like link them together. And then now my agent would be able to call his that has a different special skill. Yeah.
Cool.
So yeah, that's available today in Studio. I also saw, Andy, you had me like flip over to my screen. I did see that we do have Agent 365 because we're in Frontier. So when admins, when you guys log in for the first time, you're going to see agents on the side. When you click on that, you're going to see like a try it now button in the middle. And that's where you basically accept the supplemental terms to try out Agent 365. And now I've got that enabled on here. So I've got the agent registry, and that's I don't know what the heck's going on. I got 3 humans, but 170 agents. Like, what the crap? But that's also like all the third-party agents that are available to my users in this
that
tenant.
somebody tried once. Just what is that? But
Exactly.
The part about the Agent 365, or just the how agents get registered, it felt like some of the news of not just this user interface to be able to do and kind of manage what you need to, but that they're becoming almost like people really in Intra, so that you can see what they do. And I don't know, like, it seems like they're going to do up a lot of looking and finding, like they're doing searching and grounding on some content or document. Does that count as this source? Based on my question, the answer came from a document in a SharePoint document library. Does it get down to that level where it's like the agent looked at the document, registered that in the audit log? Is that what it's doing?
From what I understand, I think it is at that level. That's what I've been predicting since the very early in the calendar year. Jared Spataro had a thing about that when they introduced the Frontier firm and they talked about these agentic colleagues. I've noticed a pendulum shift over on like a couple years ago. The pendulum was swinging towards one side where we all collectively felt a little bit icky about Alexa and Siri and Cortana, and like, why are all these assistants happen to be like female names, and like, why are we like gendering these like voice assistants and things? And it felt like we got away from that collectively. So when ChatGPT came out, they intentionally did not personify it, right? But now I feel like it's swinging the other way, where the most like successful agents I'm seeing in my organization are named something like Maxine the meeting assistant, Rex the role-playing recruiting agent. They're giving it names, and what's fun is they're using alliteration a lot, and it's like Rex the something or Ray the something else. And I've noticed that like we're giving them names to almost make it more natural that you talk to it like a colleague. And I was thinking the next shoe that's going to drop with these Frontier firms and agentic colleagues is the idea that we're going to give them an identity. And I think Microsoft kind of tipped their hand a little bit during the announcement, because they started putting like a custom icon for their agents that they demo, and it's like a person's face, like a cartoon character that they created. And I've started to think like, okay, they're starting to give them human names, they're starting to give them pictures. I think we're going to see them get Intra ID, whatever it's called, identities. And from what I understand, then that's going to make it so that you can just mention it and add it to a group chat or email the agent, and then it would do whatever it's programmed to do in its custom instructions. So I think, yes, it seems to be what I would define agentic colleagues as is, I think that we're going to see a couple things. One is that it needs to have like a person identifier, and that would be the Intra ID thing. The next is that agents would have the agency to call other agents. So native built-in multi-agent orchestration. And then the third one being able to like add it to collaborative spaces. And it looks like we really have all 3 components. It's just that, one's in preview with Intra ID. The other one is like you manually turn it on when you build your agent only in Studio, but the agent builder or Copilot Studio Lite agents, those don't yet have the capability to kind of join an agentic orchestration network. And then the third one, which is being able to add it to a collaborative space, you can do that technically today. This was also featured at Ignite, was this button right here. Have you seen this one yet, Mark?
Yeah, I've used it once, purely out of curiosity.
Yeah, how did it work for you? I'm curious.
It worked good as long as everybody kind of knew the game that they were getting into. And so it was
Yeah.
sort of like, now we've got we're a company of 7. So if it was an all hands type meeting, now we have an 8th person, kind of like there was in the chat earlier, the mention of facilitator, which I haven't used. I think I sometimes just don't remember. I remember it's on because it's taking notes, but I forget that you can mention it and ask it to do certain things. Our
Yeah.
meetings are fairly straightforward, but the notion of having facilitator as that 8th person to be able to do things. And I even ended our morning call this morning that was a public ask Sympraxis. It was offline, but I said, facilitator let me know that we went over a couple minutes, and I said, no surprise, look who was driving this meeting. That was me. So I just said, go easy on me, facilitator, or something jokey, whatever, in the chat. And I just mentioned facilitator, and it came right back with a nice tone, that said, oh, don't worry about it, Mark. We all go over time a little bit, whatever it said. But in the notion of being able to kind of co-talk to it when you are having stream of conscious type discussions, you're not going to always be the one that drives the right question or prompt. And if it's really a team exercise to come to some conclusion or to gather materials of what you're going to, like today, you might have, had the 3 of us on a call and saying, like you did, asking Copilot just to summarize some of the bigger rocks that Ignite 2025 Ignite. Well, what about, like you mentioned, Clipchamp and the ability with Sora 2, and what about this? What about that? And then maybe at the very end, all right, take our whole conversation and consolidate it into the top 10 or whatever. But anyway, it was a pretty simple, let's try it out. It wasn't a real depth use of it.
I've noticed the same thing. Yeah, like it takes a little bit of teaching people. Like, I'm gonna just drop you into a chat with Copilot, and then on the side, I have to kind of let them know, hey, by the way, you can mention Copilot here. Here's how you wake it up, and here's how you talk to me. Yeah, give them some instructions.
Yeah, we when SharePoint Agents was in the early phases, we had a really kind of a fun use case for the beta version of it. This was CJ Tan, if you've seen CJ do her thing. This was when they were in early phase, and it came to an all hands that was at the Adam Harmitz level. So if you know some of these folks, Adam Harmitz's team is somewhere between 100 or 200 people, if I get it wrong. It's about that many people, and so we all were given sort of the keys to try it early. And then we took one of the use cases and built it on top of a fairly large, what is effectively an internal meeting, but it is inviting a lot of partners. So we had an agent that we built out that you could then ask it, but you had to really tell people, no, you can put this agent into a Teams chat and then ask it questions about the event. And kind of, hopefully for us, it took a little, our inboxes were getting pretty filled with how many people do we expect, what type of content, what's the tone, is this an NDA event, all the common FAQ type things. And dropping it in, or at least having it sort of on the site to be able to chat with, hopefully saved a little bit of back and forth and a little bit of email. But the notion of still having to tell people it's there and, here's how to use it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's going to be a little bit of a paradigm shift with this as well. And that's kind of the third piece of what I would call an agentic colleague is this, like, now we're bringing humans and agents together. And this is just a first level example. I think in 18 months from now, we're going to be like, that was so rudimentary. You had to go to chat and then you had to bring it into Teams this way. So I think we're like very early days, but you're seeing here what happens is it will create from chat. I clicked the plus button. I added Andy. I told it how many chats do I want it to go back and share. Kind of like when you add a person to a Teams chat, you give a chat history, like just the last day or all of it or 30 days. And then it created that Teams chat in the background. So I went to Teams, there was a new chat. Then Andy now is able to mention Copilot, ask a question, and Andy is currently reviewing that response. So it still has a little bit of that responsible AI check of, okay, I'm going to let Andy see if this is like ridiculous or not. And then he's going to approve that prompt. And then now everybody will get to see the response in the chat. I'm with you though, Mark. I've only used it one time so far. and it was with Amy Dolzine. We were doing that New York trip that I mentioned, the voice chat stuff. Rather than having a call, I started asking Copilot to help make our like presentation outline, and then I added it to a chat with Amy, and me and Amy planned our entire live presentation, and we never had a call about it the whole time.
That's awesome.
So what we did is what Andy
Amy's
has
pretty fun to
done.
talk to. Don't skip that part.
Well, yeah. We what we did is what Andy has done now is I added the outline to the notes for the chat, and that's where we worked collaboratively. So a lot of people may not know that another brand new feature I think might have been covered in the Ignite stuff is that your chats have notes attached to them, and that's a loop component or a loop page.
I was going to say, I bet Daryl knew the answer to that one.
Well, yeah, I bet. Yeah. So what we did is like I grabbed this outline and I just threw it in the notes, and now you've got this side by side collaborative area where we can edit this in real time and ask Copilot like, oh, what do you think about this idea? Or I'm not so sure. Massage this paragraph, and you're working side by side. It's not technically a Copilot page. It's technically just a note that is powered by Loop, much like Copilot pages are powered by Loop.
Yeah, I felt like that was one brand, and I can't predict this in any confidence. The Copilot pages felt like it was just going to be a feature, not necessarily a branded experience. Not to knock it, but it just felt like, with the agenda work in Microsoft Teams, with what you're showing now, with anything that Facilitator does, it goes directly into Loop, and super easy to share elements of it if you make each one a component, however you want to digest a loop. But the notion of a Copilot page started off almost real rigid because it was just a single Copilot page. I know that's changed.
Yeah.
And obviously some of the underpinnings of where the Loop team now seems to focus a lot of time is around notebooks and pages. All good. But it seemed to be almost an overcorrect on the what the thing is versus how you're using it. And the how you use it here is you're not thinking about a page. You're just thinking about something that's an easy place to track some notes.
John, I'm going to take the screen share for a second. I want to expand on that just a little bit.
Go ahead. Here's your screen. Yep.
All right. So we, on the Loop topic, a feature that has gotten some enhancement over just the last couple of weeks that I want to bring into the conversation. I'm literally having a conversation with Copilot right now, and this conversation, it might be just temporary. It's just a back and forth with Copilot, depending on your org's retention policy. But when you go in, we've got the edit and pages option, and that's going to bring it into a Copilot page. And so I can go ahead and open up that Copilot page, and now I go from conversation to draft. I'm starting to work on this content. This is a Loop note. It's going to live in my primary Loop workspace, and that's associated with like my user account. But now they're starting to give the one-click handoff where you go from draft to document. So maybe I work on this and I hand it off. Now our tenant's not actually showing this, but my work tenant, there's a drop down where it says open in Word right now, and that drop down shows me both Word and PowerPoint. So the handoff's starting to come into different document formats versus just a Word document, and that really streamlines that entire workflow from conversation to draft to document or something more polished to be able to share. And then that doesn't even get into the other parts of the workflow where we could take this and start adding it to Copilot notebooks. We could add it to different workspaces. We could reference it as part of like other conversations. And now this one-off becomes something reusable across a couple of different endpoints. And I think that's just huge for the workflow. I wish our tenant had that one-click handoff to the other document types like I'm seeing in the work tenant, but that just showed up in the last couple of weeks, and that's been just in 2 weeks really helpful.
The question and kind of the comment that just came in around the odd question of being able to create a new tab app that is a Loop workspace and the ability to do what you were just showing. The way I thought I saw it, and I don't know if this is answering the question, but it feels like one that I want to add to the team kind of in a permanent use case. I want to have a place for us to keep our thoughts or, to take the notes for maybe in a channel meeting, you have your notes consistently in the same place. Whereas the other one is a little bit more ad hoc. You know, I didn't really plan to take notes, but I'm going to take notes. And I don't want to necessarily put it in as a tab for everybody else in the channel to see. I don't know if that's addressing your comment, Warple, but I feel like it's there. It made me think of the journey that I think that type of app in the channel has been on, where we first had the default wiki, you know, delete that right away. And then we had the ability to have a OneNote as an app, or you could eventually put in a SharePoint page. Maybe that's a good place to put something that's a little bit more permanent and durable. But I really do like that they got to the point where you could have a kind of a dedicated loop as a channel app. Because I think it would be
to show that you're talking about this here. So like you've got our general channel, we click plus, and we do a new page. And this is what Mark's talking about.
Yep, and that's what was in the chat was around there's this, what you just did. Like that's a way where you could create a page to take notes. I think the big difference, whether it's a plus or a negative, is this is intended, if you're creating as a channel app, to kind of be there for a while. You know, you can remove them whenever you're done, and they're pretty transient. But it is also something that it is intended for people to see, versus maybe you're just taking some notes, but you're not necessarily ready to share them, or it just doesn't need to be shared because they're just kind of a smaller use case.
Yeah. And I put in, I just called it "Where's this stored?" so I could find it. And to show you guys the breadcrumb, it looks like, yes, it's aware of the SharePoint.
Yeah.
Then there's the channel, you know, which is the folder in the SharePoint. And then there's that loop page. But that would be different than if you did a loop workspace, because see, this is still available, the little plus button. So you could also take it and throw it in like our deep dive workspace. And now I guess it would be physically stored in this SharePoint, but associated with that workspace.
Yep.
So I don't know if that's going to make everybody's head turn all the way around or not.
Yeah,
that's a little bit weird to think about, you know.
I think Daryl would suggest that they create a Loop 365 admin console.
Right? Yeah.
How do we manage our loops?
Yeah. And see, I've done it twice, and now like this is what where you see is a little bit different is that you see the link icon. So it's like this file doesn't live in this workspace, but it is in the workspace, you know, associated with it. And I did it twice, so actually I've linked it 2 times, so I could delete one of them.
Nice.
But yeah, you still see that it's here. It's like showing that it's in the workspace, but technically it's actually over in the SharePoint.
And I have to ask, the graphic that you created for this episode, the fun Indiana Jones theme.
Yes, yeah.
I guess this was Andy, because I've seen Andy's work before. Which
this was a
AI,
collaborative effort.
This was I was going to say, which AI capability within Microsoft or outside did you use to create that one?
So we use Microsoft Create now for everything. I've been paying for a Canva subscription for a couple years, and we've been creating all of our thumbnails in Canva for the longest time. Now I haven't logged into it in like maybe 6 months, and I do everything in the Create app. So yeah, we were doing several different iterations of this. If I go to my images, and we'll see, where is it? Yeah, here they are. I don't know what those ones are. Realistic Enterprise Ready. So this was the thing. Place these 3 guys in an explore adventure scene. You can't use the word Indiana Jones because it'll block it.
Yep.
Yeah. So, and then I was like, Andy was talking about in, which one is it? It's not Raiders. It's Last Crusade.
Yeah, the Last Crusade.
Last Crusade, where they're stepping on tiles that have like glyphs on them. And so we were like, well, replace the letters with app icons. So it did that. That was our prompt. And then I just like took text and slapped the logo on it, or the
nice.
title.
I hope that you have an NFT applied to it, because it's going to go for millions.
Going viral.
Years from now. Well, I am curious to hear your thoughts and to share some of mine. You all want to shift to the SharePoint news?
Yes.
I got
let's go
one
there.
last thing on the Copilot pages piece. If we could just
Okay.
go back to my screen for just
sure.
a second, and then we'll shift into that.
And then I've got a
Omni-pointed-
short one to get us to SharePoint that
Perfect.
Amy was talking about.
Perfect.
So, Ami was pointing out that this icon in the lower corner here, and I'm just going to go live without a safety net and bring it up. So it's Copilot shortcuts. So we can adjust the
What?
content.
I haven't seen that.
Nice. The dog that got the dogs happy.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
Now I'm asking the question: who let those dogs out? John.
Amazon must be here.
Yeah. So change the tone,
Yeah.
and then the page style. I'm gonna say let's just do like section headers and let it go and like do its
I've never
thing.
seen that before. That's cool.
But there it goes. Iterating through it. So yeah, it's little things like that. I didn't even notice that until Ami pointed it out just a second ago. And so as we were shifting, I was like, oh, I want to go back and push that button live on the screen.
Yeah. Look at the one tone listed as assertive.
Assertive, huh?
That's a good one.
I wonder if you just keep clicking
my nature.
assertive over and over again, because it just get like really hardcore.
So like Super Troopers, enhance,
listen.
enhance.
That's a good one. Thank you,
All
Arnie,
right.
for pointing that out.
So
awesome.
Mark, where did you want to transition?
So
Well,
the
John
other
said he
thing,
had a segue.
Andy,
Oh.
if I steal the screen, I took this comment on screen here differently. So you were like, oh, he's talking about the icon in the lower right corner. I thought he was talking about the icon in the lower left corner, which is this one right here. He was like, hey, what's that icon? So this is kind of a transition point. I made a video which was like, where the hell did Microsoft put my apps whenever they came out with like, the new version of Copilot? And it was like, okay, Office.com is now the Copilot web app. It's all Copilot now all the time. But there was an app button, like an app area right here where you could click on it. You could pin your apps. Then you would see your apps in the menu. Microsoft has changed this again.
Yeah.
And it's a perfect segue. Now your apps are under this little icon, just even more minimized. Click on that little puzzle piece icon, and now you'll have your apps. So now to get to SharePoint, we have to go here. Now I can go to SharePoint, and there we go.
Interesting.
So
Yeah.
now we're there.
Well, honestly, let's maybe even pause to talk about one other sort of not announcement, but it really wasn't wrapped up in a lot of the announcements was, and I think maybe somebody in the chat mentioned it earlier, is there have been a lot of UX changes that aren't new features, but that they've been rearranging our cheese a little bit.
Yeah.
So I know in the SharePoint UI, especially at the document library level, they came out with the big announcements. A lot of stuff will happen next year as far as it being implemented. But you're going to see a lot of things that you kind of expected to hit the new drop-down button on the left. It's now on the right in the create or upload. When you're in Teams, you used to have to, if you have multiple tenants that you switch in and out of, you used to go in the upper right, click your tenant name. Now it's got a kind of a new feature, but it's definitely moved down to the lower left. The ability to kind of see the activity of other tenants in other tenants. And it almost like boxes them in a window, so you don't have to actually switch tenants to go read your activity or your chats.
Yeah.
But the summary of it is just there's a lot of UI and UX movement of buttons, retitling, like somebody mentioned, files is now shared, and all good. I'm flexible, but at the same time, I remember that one of the biggest flaks that the SharePoint team got. This is probably a decade ago. Is when they moved, and this is pre-cloud, they moved the search box from one side to the other. And it was like this uproar of,
Side actions.
it was
Side
tough.
actions
It was
moved
tough.
back and forth as well.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's interesting in the cloud era and the AI era, those kind of changes that, they iterate on the names and the colors and the this and the that. But those, big moves, it takes you a second, even if you read about it. I read this change like you're showing right now with the create or upload in the
You're
upper
like,
right.
what the heck? Where's my button?
Yeah, I keep
It's
going
over
to
here
the
now.
left. I keep going.
Yeah.
Where's the new? Where's the new? I would just want to create a folder. But anyway, I thought that
I remember it was a
it's-
big shift when we put the search bar in the middle of the title bar. And it was like, you're going to do what to Word and PowerPoint? And you know, like, you're going to put where the name of the app is? You're going to put a search bar?
That's crazy.
if the change in the UI doesn't impact my workflow too much, I don't complain too much about it. It's a big shift though, going from right to left here with the creator upload. That's going to mess up muscle memory for a lot of people.
Yeah.
On the other part
it
of
went
that,
with a name change too. It used to just be plus new.
the name change is hurt, and Daryl pointed that out with the files tab now becoming shared. That one's difficult to explain to end users that have been looking at files for the last almost 10 years with Teams. John mentioned earlier though, in office.com now Copilot home and the apps disappearing from the side. That one's also a little bit of a frustration point because Office was an entry point to us, and then we would pick the app that we want to work with. On the flip side of that, though, if I can do something in the flow of work to get me to the app, like go from Copilot chat to a Copilot page, then to a Word document, and it just flows naturally, that saves me time, minimizes the content switching. I'm okay with that. But some of the renames and the big shifts here, it just causes friction. So my feedback to Microsoft would be, if you're going to make some changes like this, at least give us some good hero screenshots and make it easy for us to update our content. Because as much as we know you want to try to design these interfaces to minimize the amount of training that people need in order to interact with it, people still need training to know what buttons to push and what order to push them in to accomplish the tasks that they need to do.
Yeah.
SOPs that have to be developed. So just give me some hero shots when you move the buttons around so that I can update my content.
Yeah. For training documentation, you know, even 5 or 10 years ago, it became the new nightmare, which was things change often and a lot. And if you don't have to take screenshots very often, you know, you'll just have to learn. But if you have to go through every training element and, you know, have it as updated as possible so that people getting trained can go from your training screen to their real environment. Yeah.
See what you're going to do now, to Phil's point here, there will only be Copilot. So here's all you change management people. You're just going to go to Frontier. You're going to go to Word, and then you're just going to say, hey, go replace that screenshot with this screenshot in this entire SharePoint site. He'll just do it for you,
If
Andy.
only it were that easy.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah.
Powered by Claude, which no one is going to turn on until it goes into the M365
I was going to say
boundary.
the agentic training has yet to come.
I'm gonna jump into that one, John. Can you go back to Copilot chat, hit Researcher, and just bring point out the Claude button in the upper
Researcher?
corner?
Yeah, right here.
All right, so we got the Claude capability maybe 2 months ago, so you can turn Claude on, but it's outside of the tenant boundary. It's outside of your BAA with Microsoft. And that's a completely separate company that you have to potentially go and work with for data privacy and security. But same timeline around Ignite, Microsoft and Anthropic announced an agreement, and Anthropic is going to be investing, I think, upwards of like 30 billion into Azure, and potentially moving or hosting Claude in Azure, and Microsoft will be investing upwards of 5 billion into Anthropic, and NVIDIA will be investing up to 10 billion into Anthropic. So I think that's going to be another pretty big player in the space that hopefully is going to fall underneath the BAA here shortly, that we would be able to leverage with like that new agent or the agents that you were just showing on the screen there. And one other segue, it's all kind of Ignite news. Claude, the new model came out this past week. Holy crap, is it good? It is so good.
I've got
this
do
experiment
Claude
that I've been
personally.
running for a while now, and I do the same thing with all the AIs. It's a coding experiment. It's a vibe coding. I had a game that I played when I was in middle school. It was a mini golf game. It was a top-down mini golf game, and it was geometry based. And so you would tell it an angle, and it would hit the ball, and you try to get a hole in one. But you had to use geometry to make it happen. I vibe coded that with ChatGPT a couple years ago.
Mm.
I've revibe coded it with Google Gemini and with Claude. And every time a new model comes out, I go back and do the same thing. I did this a couple of days ago with a new Claude model, and it is good. It is so good. It almost takes me back to it's even better than I remember with childhood. It's like when you got a Super Nintendo for the first time and you dive into Super Mario versus like Super Mario 3. Like it was like that kind of leap. I was like, wow, this is incredible. So the new model's awesome, but hopefully on the heels of that announcement, we'll start to see some of that functionality coming to the Microsoft stack.
Mark W on LinkedIn before we started was saying, hey, remember to tell people that with these agents, with the Claude stuff, that it does require a new agreement at the admin level. Your data will be processed outside of the M365 cloud. So it's an agreement with Anthropic, not with Microsoft. And however, though, if most production environments are probably not going to be comfortable with that yet, but if you have a QA environment or like a non-prod, I would encourage you to try it somewhere where you can, because the new agents in Frontier are using Claude, and it is so much better at making these files like PowerPoint slide decks and stuff. And it finally stitched together for me, Mark. I went into like create, right? And I was like, where are these images coming from? It's because Claude called create to go make some images for my PowerPoint. So that's where those are coming from.
So they've already got that notion of agents talking to other agents. Exactly.
Yeah. And it's interesting because it was Claude going and using the create, which as far as I know is OpenAI, not DALL-E, but the image generation that's like the top down scraping. So I think, it was like kind of going across models, but all, just inside of Microsoft. That's all you should have to care about, right, as a user.
Yeah, this will be very, not very solid ground for me to base anything on, but just in a customer conversation, they were talking about getting, from on-prem or from a file share into SharePoint, mostly just focused on content and a little lightweight intranet, polish and make usability a little bit better. But they were wanting to lay the groundwork for some AI component that they could then leverage. And it pulls in together a couple of technologies, not just Microsoft. But the question, which is for us to do a little homework on, but was maybe we just use a connector that connects us to a third-party AI instead of paying for Copilot in addition to our Microsoft 365 licensing.
Yeah.
And I'm not one to hold the licensing conversation. It's more for them to decide, but just to more ground them literally on the element of you don't want your content leaving your tenant as much as possible. Let's minimize that risk. That's part of the design. And Copilot's built in, so that's a win for Copilot off the gate. But with something that is maybe a better model or a better use case for the types of work they're doing, if it is within their tenant, then it's the same, little risk-free type conversation. And that there's limitations of what connectors can really accomplish. They highlighted that a couple times during Ignite. And it was kind of a funny balancing act, which I, of course, would probably recall writing some things about on behalf of the engineering team. Of course, connectors are great, but the native integration that we have enables you to do searching of metadata. Pages are becoming aware for Copilot, all the good SharePoint announcements that a connector just isn't yet capable of doing means it's a better experience, right?
Yeah.
So it feels like it'll just be a better experience anyway, even though it's great to have Claude on board. With less risk and a better experience feels like worth waiting for.
Yeah. So do you want me to create
one more second, if that's all right?
Yeah, sure.
All right. So Mark, you just mentioned the licensing piece, and we're like really in deep, like trying to figure it out. It's like we're going through all the different types of agents that are out there, how we're going to provision them, how we're going to manage it. Hopefully Agent 365 is going to help us with some of that. But I had to do a presentation with our at TechCon 365 in Dallas recently. And I knew that people were going to be asking about the licensing and the costs, and I knew it was going to come. And so this was my response at that conference. And this is about as deep as I'm actually going to get into answering that in any public forum. But
that's That's great. That's great. Nate
awesome.
Bargatze, if anything, it's like one of those, if you catch an actor later in life and they played some key role in a Batman movie, then forever they're known for being, the butler in Batman, but the history of all of the wonderful characters they played when they were in their younger lives, and history in Shakespeare on stage. And they're like, but I now in my end of my career am known for, being Batman's butler. That's funny. That's great. Well, you have it up. I feel like I was the one demo I wanted to do, but John, you're such a good demo, and to be able to just showcase the new SharePoint page agent within the Copilot chat. I thought that was one thing we should definitely touch on. But this is, I think, the where it started.
Do you want to show that, or are you talking about?
Well, I wasn't sure what you
page, or are you talking about from chat?
I was going to do it from chat. I just didn't know what you were going to show from.
Why don't you show that if you can? Because I haven't seen it from chat. I've always gone from like the SharePoint web app perspective.
So this is one of the new announcements that the SharePoint team made, amongst a lot of things, the GA of the knowledge agent and a lot of the work they're doing with Admin Center to be able to do that. But I'm not as good of a while talking presenter demoer, but I'll do my best. But I reached out, not necessarily to get access to this, but I just had seen one of my old colleagues, Jackie Hugh. He did the post within the tech community that goes into the details of the SharePoint page agent, because that's the one that's shipping earlier, or at least becoming more available earlier. And in his response, he's like, yeah, you can go try it today. We just started to release it. So here it is. So again, in the Microsoft Copilot chat experience, load up all your agents, get to them however you want. I just did a search and find and then added it as an agent that I want to use. And when you click to it, I think it becomes kind of obvious. It's not just a page or an app mention of the SharePoint agent, even though you can do that. But let's make a page out of this PowerPoint. So I'm going to just go in and grab a piece of content that we were working on and presented this morning, which was similar in nature of reviewing Ignite. So here's this one. And it's just a PowerPoint. It's now in its finished state. And I'm going to keep this one pretty simple. But the part that I like about it is it does ground on what you're looking for. And it starts to do what you would expect, kind of as if I had asked a question, what happened at Ignite and what were some of the highlights? But it's using the structure that we put into the PowerPoint, right? And here's where it's sort of you decide, good design, kind of they'll continue to work on it. Do we want to, add a products going out of support section? No. Keep it as a pure Ignite recap, just sort of has these prompts. So you, like Andy would, have a great conversation with the SharePoint page agent, refine it down. But for the sake, what I'm trying to get to is the part where you see now, okay, I think we're ready to create a page. And you actually have the new UI element that maybe isn't too out of reach for people who have built, the adaptive card experience. I'm not saying that's where this comes from, but it feels like it. So we're about ready to create a page. It has a picker for me, which is based on my recent activity. And I can choose where I want to do it. I confirm.
Nice.
And now it's going to go, and it'll be a very simple SharePoint page. You could have made a lot more complexity. I think the work to refine it is still maybe best to do in SharePoint if you know specifically what you want to do. But there it is, the new page. It tells me where it created it, how it did it. It's keeping track of it. You have these prompts that keep going, right? But if I click into it, it should show me what is the start of a new SharePoint page, having gone from the chat experience now into where the page was created. This was for the last event that I had gone to. And it's doing similar of what if you had started this within SharePoint, but it's sort of agnostic to the site that I need to create it in.
Yeah.
And I want to keep it. And now I can start doing all the normal things that we've seen. We can start to break it into either auto-generated, elements using AI more, or doing something more static and 2-column and
that's pretty new. The little sparkle in the sections.
Yeah.
Where now you can use AI to generate this section block rather than the entire page.
Yeah, there's a lot,
cool.
I think, that's new. It's one of those elements that if you haven't created a page recently, not just create a page with AI, but just the flexibility with the flexible sections being able to do things that have been there for a while, but with new ways of doing it. Even just how you use sections and the different things that you can choose and, basically manage the page, especially if you go into this design ideas. I think you sometimes will get a little lost in the art of the possible and it doing too much for you, because then you have to go and clean it up. But if you just, click a new section, bangs it out really quickly and, adds the elements.
So John and I were talking about this earlier today, and we were hoping we were going to get to expand on this just a little bit with you. So SharePoint pages are huge for my workflow, and they've been huge for my workflow for a long time. So I love that they're getting some love now, and some of these new features are really making it easy to create pages that are not only content rich, but also visually pleasing. So you've got that box down there where you created the section. It says create a section about, and what I love about that is that we can prompt it and you can pull resources. In the lower right-hand corner, we can add content to that section and we can reuse existing content. So this is one of the PKM things that we wanted to geek out on a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm glad you walked into this
Well,
topic.
take over at any time if you want to show sort of the next thing.
No, I'm happy for you to continue to drive on this. So what the workflow kind of looks like for me is when it's time to go and create a page. Nowadays, it's let's go to Copilot, let's repurpose existing content, let's do some net new searching, let's use a Copilot page to start to put that together, and then let's go and actually start creating the SharePoint page around that content. And what I have is the Copilot page is like the draft, kind of like my history, so that I can quickly see like where we've been. And then I've got the page, which is the publication that I push out to the organization. And Copilot can now also pull from that, Search can pull from it, so it's reusable in a lot of different ways. But that's kind of the workflow for me, is Copilot page, maybe to Word, and then SharePoint page. Because when we go, I think if we hit the in that box or in the editor, I think the resources is limited to like maybe PowerPoints and Word documents at this juncture. If you hit the sparkles, and then in the lower right hand corner you got the attachments. And we can look at the file type. So loop pages are supported. So Copilot pages. It's like even meetings are there now. So so reusable content. The end game for me is to eventually be able to get an agent that is like a digital curator of my knowledge base being built on top of SharePoint pages. And I know that's part of what the knowledge agent is supposed to do. I want a little bit more control. Like I would like to be able to invoke the agent, have it go and pull the latest from the SharePoint blog, the Teams blog, the Copilot blog. What are the new releases? What are the new news? And then append or update my existing page based off of those changes, but also giving me like a draft history. It's a pie in the sky workflow right now, but we're getting really, really close to it. So I wanted to point that out. Like you have the ability to create content and reference existing content. Makes things reusable. And so we get some control into like what goes into those sections. And then there's also a couple of additional web parts that we now have available. You can add an agent button onto the page and create that one-click integration into an agent.
That's one that I want to get a little bit more. Instead of it clicks and opens up the pane, I want to keep it in the context of the page. Just a little chatty experience right there.
That is on my wish list as well. And then you mentioned the other one earlier, the FAQ web part. I love the FAQ.
That's so cool.
That's a great one.
Yeah, you want to show that one real quick?
Let's see if we can do an
This is like document people, adoption people are going to rejoice so much for this, because we used to, back in the day, we'd have to create a page and then I would use collapsible sections where every question was a collapsible section in a SharePoint page. And it was so tedious to build those things. And I liked the ability to collapse it down, but my goodness, it was just a lot of like clicking and like rearranging things to be just right.
It's a lot.
And now it's like with natural language.
Yeah. So we got the kind of main categories. I'm just going to delete a couple just so you can see that you can delete. And
as
then we're
well as
gonna,
add. You can add
Yep.
additional
And you're
categories
starting
while you're
from
there.
broad and you're getting to granular, where it's like, let's figure out the top level categories. Let's figure out the questions. Then let's figure out the answers to the questions, you
so
know?
you can always add more. You can always delete and remove. You can change the text once you get to final. But this, for the quick demo, it's pulling information from the source document and probably a little bit broader because it is pulling stuff I think I didn't quite have in there. And it's, getting to basically a functional element on a page that has a lot of great details. And it's doing a lot of work that a lot of people do this in Microsoft Word. Even if it wasn't an FAQ web part, it's like, no, always have it as a SharePoint page because then it's easy to share. You can put
easy to
additional
update.
context around. And of course, the FAQ web part makes it as simple as what we're seeing. But the real-time nature of how fast and how good is this thing, I think is one thing that probably does get talked about more often than I know. But
It's crazy.
it's really good. And, you kind of get to a point where you're like, okay, keep it. Yep. And now you have an element of text on the page. You can continue to refine. It's just editable text. So if we wanted to bold that, if we wanted to go down here, and if we didn't like, leaders instead of leadership, it's all
And on the side, you can
manageable.
choose it to be a collapsible chevron or a
Yep.
plus minus, so you could
Let's
have it
do it.
expand out and shrink.
Yeah. So let's put this
So
at least
cool.
a save and a close. And then
I was curious, if you save that,
Mhm.
are you able to, are those linkable elements? Like,
I
can
don't
you go
think
next
so.
to it? Okay.
I don't
Because that
think
was
so.
one thing I had with collapsible sections that I liked was I could, every question was linkable
Yeah,
with an
yeah.
anchor link.
That's
and
good
that way I
feedback.
could select
That's
just
good.
that one question to share with somebody.
Yeah. No, I would agree with that 100%. And then the little bonus feature that you
Oh,
get
and
here.
there's a search. I didn't see the search before.
Can't find what you're looking for. So that is now my ugly SharePoint page that started from scratch. But again, the reminder is it started from just an agent, which again, I think you have to know what you're doing. You have to have good resources, to be the kind of source content to the element of writing a good prompt. There's a lot that you could have added here to make this a little bit better. But I think the key is they have a good step process for just getting started with the basics. And then that component where you choose the site. I think it's just neat to see within a Copilot chat the ability for, again, if it's adaptive card or not, something that is a defined UI that is friendlier. It's an approve or disapprove button. It's a lookup of a map. It's a show me something other than just a wall of text, which
That
I think
is a
good.
standardized UI practice that Microsoft's going with. You're going to see that menu in the Frontier agents.
Yeah.
So the Word, PowerPoint, Excel, when it asks you about what style you want, it's going to be those types of clickable buttons, as well as researcher. Now, whenever you run a researcher thing, you'll be able to say, I want a short or a long response. And it's that same type of picker type of element.
Cool. Yeah.
I didn't know anything about this agent. I really like going this direction because what I've done in the past is you start at the SharePoint site, you click new and then page with AI.
Yep.
And that feels a little bit like the V1 version of PowerPoint Copilot,
Yep.
where you would describe what you wanted and you basically had to one shot get a slide deck. And then they made the narrative builder where it was like, okay, let's not make the slides yet. Let's work on your narrative and let's work on your outline. And then we make the slides. This feels like that direction because you were going back and forth and it was like, well, let's clarify this thing. Do you want this style or that style? It asked you some questions before it created the page.
Yep.
Where if you go to what you're looking at now, you kind of have to get the prompt right the first time and then it creates the page for you.
Yeah, I think there's the within the site experience, there's the within the Copilot chat experience, and then there's this interim thing that they had been working on where you've always had this create site, create news post if you have access to do so. And this kind of takes that same notion, create the news post and then choose where to put it. But I haven't actually looked to see if the new Pages app, which is where you see a lot of the new
templates and stuff.
Yeah, the new templates and everything pop up. But I wasn't sure if this would be somewhere where, it would have sort of that new create experience, but it doesn't look like it.
It would make sense. Maybe down the road.
Yeah. So anyway, that's my demo. The one thing that isn't there yet is the SharePoint page agent starting to show up. They also mentioned a new SharePoint lists agent, which I think will be a
Yeah.
big win, because that fear factor that comes with building a list or doing it for the first time.
Phil was
And
talking about that in the chat.
yeah. I'm really excited about that one, because I think if it is something that is functional, to just get out of your head of building the list, like, it really is simple. It's one of the most simple parts of the job I used to have, was to show people how to use lists. And, once you do it once or twice, like any other app, you get the gist of it. But, whether you think it's going to take a long time, or it's out of my skill set, or whatever, the value of having things in lists, same as the value of having things in pages with the right use cases, makes sense. And to be able to do that and abstract the creation part, which maybe is the element that is why, even though lists are pretty pervasive, and I'll be interested to see how that one gets people out of the I don't know how to create a list, to look, I have a
Yeah.
great list that works for me.
Lower that bar to entry, and
Exactly.
maybe more people can benefit from it without having to rely on somebody else to make the initial list for them.
Exactly.
I love that.
Well, that is the end of my demo. I'm a little bit more clunky than John or Andy, but I think it's exciting.
Oh,
The
no, not at
SharePoint,
all.
the
That's
SharePoint
cool.
stuff, and I wasn't, going to necessarily demo the knowledge agent, but I was curious, for anybody in the audience and for you, John and Andy, not so much just the Ignite announcements, which was the ability to kind of manage them per site, and the ability for them to be able to read more content. And of course, the licensing, which is really good news. It's just a part of your Microsoft 365 subscription now. If you have that, you get the knowledge agent. But, let's just get to talking about what your thoughts are on the knowledge agent. I'm curious.
That's one that I don't really have a whole lot of context around, but I know, like, Andy, I think you would probably benefit from this, like,
Oh, I'm going to
immensely.
geek out on it.
Yeah, because
I'm
of,
going to
because
geek
of
out
your,
on it.
you're really heavy into, like, building your community around SharePoint. You've done a ton of work around, like, curating lists of knowledge and knowledge-based things within that site. At EY, our stuff, it's a little bit more centralized and not with the community. We kind of take a lot of our SharePoint type of things and we put them into a hub site for all of technology. So we've got like a little bit of separation there. So I think we'll have a little bit more maybe work around us to kind of tune knowledge type of agents for that gigantic site that has a ton of different topics. Just on its face value, I'm wondering if the knowledge agent will be a little bit more useful straight out of the box with a community-backed SharePoint, whether it's a team site, a Viva site, or a Teams site, Microsoft Teams site.
Yep.
I'm curious though, like if it has a broad range of topics, if it will be quite as good, or if it'll be more prone to hallucinating and going to some other part of the hub site.
I hope that the scoping is right in terms of the flow of where does this content live and what's available or not based on where I'm asking. And it seems like that might be an area where they have been working on it, but since hub sites have launched a number of years ago, the ability for news roll up and search scoping and theme sharing seems like it'll be a natural extension of where, if people are still organizing that way in the future, which I think they will, because it's good architecture and it's got good boundaries in terms of governance, without knowing more, feels like where it should go. But I guess TBD or TBDHUB.
For me, it's all about the metadata. And that's the part that I'm most excited about. It's going to democratize metadata for those places where we need to organize things with more structure, where we need that additional information about that data so that we can enhance the search. So that we
all
can
these
surface
nerds about governance are finally getting the benefit of, like, I told you that metadata was going to be important someday.
Just getting people the ability to not have to do it themselves, I think is going to be that straw.
Where I would like to make sure, and hopefully our friends back at in Redmond and at Microsoft are getting this message, I wanted to extend to the site pages library. I want to make sure that the knowledge agent can be utilized against the site pages library so that I can, within a set of site columns there, organize my site pages, because I use site pages for most of the content user adoption work that I do. And that's going to be huge for me to be able to organize that. I would like to see some integration with list, like for example, using a list as like a tracking tool for where I've used assets or like reused assets. I'd like to see some of that, but just to be able to have the knowledge agent help with suggesting metadata, but also making suggestions for applying metadata within my knowledge sources, I think would be huge. And that's going to get me one step closer to that AI curated knowledge base, where I can just concentrate on the actual content. It can handle organizing it, filling in some of the details. I get the final review, and then I can get the delivery. That's going to save me a ton of time. And so I'm really excited to see that part of it.
I think the any library should be able to have access to these new capabilities, because the value of how people are going to use it, you almost will never know. And if it's a document library, even if it's got some special sauce because it houses all of your site pages, or it's your site assets library, or it's the Uber thing with all of your beautiful imageries that have been approved by HR or whatever, the value of being able to organize those better doesn't necessarily mean to be the end user who's going to see the pretty picture on the intranet, but for somebody managing that content, even if it's a team of people that bought a big stock of photos and dumped them in and have their licensing all approved. Now they want to slice and dice and not necessarily build an intranet page for all of those assets. They just want to go into the library and filter and view to their heart's content. I think one of the things that popped in my head around the site pages library was still this notion of it's really hard to tell if it's a news article or a SharePoint page. And that if you really know what you're doing and you follow Susan Hanley and you go in, add the column that shows the 0 or the 1 or whatever.
Is it a promoted link?
Yeah.
And 2, it's a news article.
Yeah. But to be able to autofill or have some mechanism that says, I just want to know how can I filter on news and page? That would be a simple use case, but one that for whatever reason has been withheld, that this could crack, because it could read, yep, that's a 0 and that means news, and then just use the more familiar news or page versus what you just said. But I've just been scrolling the news here, and Andy, it sounds like you've got some thoughts maybe around. Have you used any of the autofill or fix my links, or some of the things that the knowledge agent is kind of geared up to do?
Not yet. It's in a preview. We haven't added it to our demo tenant yet. It's not in my production tenant at work yet. So I have been following along with the resources, and they are comprehensive. I've already linked 3 of them here in our chat for people that are following along. You can go in and dig down a little bit more. But
do you guys know how we add it? Is it? It's not Frontier, right? It's like Target release.
I know that it's available to add if you're admin at that level, which was not me. So that was Julie Turner.
Sure.
So she went in and did enable it the second that it was available. It wasn't anything because a lot of them are MVPs or were in a special state. I think it was just you had to go in and activate it. And then once it became available, the interesting thing is the difference of the logos that you see. Sometimes you see what kind of looks like a Contoso logo, and sometimes you see SharePoint, the SharePoint icon. And Adam Harmitz, he did address that they're doing some testing around which one resonates and gets more use and all of that. But so I think it's not a limit. It is a thing you have to do proactively.
Okay, so we set it with PowerShell, set SPO tenant. Okay, cool. And I was looking around, like clicking in the background, trying to see like where's the button for this. Okay, so I'll have to run PowerShell.
But if you haven't seen a member of the SharePoint team, his name is Zach Rosenfield, who at some level is pretty parent to that level of organization. He drives a lot of what they do with the platform, but he also is doing some of this new work around the what used to be Project Syntax. I think now falls under his purview. So if you're interested, look at him, find him on LinkedIn, Zach Rosenfield. He did a really fun autofill demo that was based on being able to lift text off of an image that wasn't really part of his demo, but all of his assets that he uploaded and then did some work within the context of metadata was mostly derived off of old recipes that his family uses. And
Nice.
anyway, it was a really cool demo that was not a use case for work, but it really highlighted and showcased. And he kind of took his time. He doesn't post a lot, so it's one of those things like, hey, Zach is posting. What's he up to?
Yeah.
And it was a really good, not
I
something
like
you'd
those
see
use
on
cases
stage.
because it resonates, you know.
Yeah.
It's not always like some fake business type thing, but it's like, you know, everybody has to deal with recipes or everybody has to deal with this thing. And,
Yeah,
you know, you
it
can
was-
feel the parallels in your industry, you know.
It
That's
was
cool.
the first time that I really saw the depths of that feature, and for
Yeah.
me, the new part that I discovered through his video, besides like, oh, that's really cool, the use case, is he went in and was able to adjust a prompt for the column. So the column is going to generate based on its own little AI prompt, and he would go and tweak that, even though it gave him a pretty good start. But just to see that what it was doing was creating, for any new file that would be uploaded, a prompt for the column to be able to go into the content, get whatever it was programmed to do, and then put it in there as metadata, and that you could then go in and tweak prompts so that you get a better result. It was pretty cool just
That's
to see a
cool.
little bit more under the hood.
I
Yeah.
have to follow up and look for that content.
Yeah, that'll be good. It brings us to time here. We have
Goes
covered
quick.
so much, but I
We
think
did
that,
cover our checklist. We just kind of jumped around
Yeah, we did.
in the checklist where the
I think
conversation
that'd be a good
took
thing
us.
to revisit, though. Like, let's stand up that knowledge agent. Let's like actually play with it. You know, put a bunch of Jolly Roger Java stuff in there and see what it can do. But yeah, thank you, Mark. You showed me so many things that I missed during Ignite. The things like the Pages agent.
It's hard
stuff
to
like
keep
that,
up with it all.
Yeah, it'll give me
It
some
takes a community.
things to explore.
It does. Yeah, just the book of news, even getting to, I think the fun part about book of news is you can maybe just do the cascade opening of the table of contents and just scroll your wheel and then stop on something and, maybe pick something that you wouldn't normally review or read. I have to go do that, but I did start with some of the targeted SharePoint and OneDrive things, but it's never a surprise, but it is always amazing for any show this size, whether it's Microsoft or Google I/O or, whenever, different companies have their big moments like this, it generates so much content. I think I saw over 150 blog posts and, all the news cycle and different comments, and everybody's taking a take, which is great to listen to and learn from. So I thought it was great. I appreciate that you all invited me on to be a part of your show for this episode, and it was really fun to also learn through you.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun. Really, really glad you're here. I know I'm going to put you on the spot. I just want to know. I see I see our friends from Praxis out and about. They're on the conference circuit. Are we going to see you out and about? And if so, where are you going to be next?
Yeah, so I have been in the context of being a Sympraxian. I went to the Collab Days New England, which was essentially their show.
Yep.
They've adopted that and become the management, the producers of that show. So I attended fresh into the company. Then I went into Vancouver. Next on the list is M365 Miami. I saw Diego in the chat. So he and Emily, I'm going to be doing a co-presentation with Sue Hanley, a kind of fun one, putting SharePoint on trial and seeing if it can test the judgment of the audience. And then I did get accepted as a speaker to the Microsoft 365 Community Conference in April.
Cool.
So planning on going there. I've got 2 sessions, one about lists and loop combined, the value of how they can keep you a little bit more on track and organized.
Yeah.
And then one, again, that same session with Sue, the organizers like just the element of how we'll, a little bit more of a stage kind of reenactment of a judge judging the things that Sue and I say. So
That's cool.
Putting SharePoint on trial never ends.
Well, John and I will see you at the Microsoft 365 Collaboration Conference. We also will be there. We've got
Excellent.
a Copilot workshop, and then we're doing a session on Loop, Whiteboard, and Copilot for ideation to projects.
Oh, cool.
So, yeah,
We'll have to mind share,
I'm
your
all
loop
for it.
session and our loop session.
That'd
and
be great. I was just
see
going
if
to
we
say,
can,
sounds like you chose
lift
kind
each
of
other up.
the what's stored in SharePoint session, but
Mhm.
up-leveled it to the the more of the use cases of the individual apps. That's great. I hope to be able
Very
to
cool.
see that. I will very much look forward to seeing you in person. I think the last time I saw Andy was random. You were in town in Seattle. You were riding one of those Lime scooters with
Yeah,
Vlad,
Vlad
and
and
I
I.
thought
yeah.
that was
Vlad
just
and I had just went to dinner on the Seattle waterfront. We were a
Mhm.
couple of blocks from our hotel for TechCon,
TechCon. That's
and
right.
we got to the top of a hill. We got a red light, and all of a sudden we hear our name, and we look over, and there's Mark running across the crosswalk.
It's like, I
Yeah,
know
you
those
sent me a
guys.
Say hello.
picture. I remember you sent me a picture because the last time I saw you, Mark, was
Hmm.
the only time we've met in person, which was at the last Microsoft 365 community
That
conference.
is
So
right. That is right.
that'll be
Well,
awesome. We'll get it back
too
together.
much time goes by, but it's nice for the digital era that has brought us together. Obviously, it's wonderful to spend time with you. I do love the way that you guys fly on this show because it takes guts. I think you've gotten used to it, so you've gotten good about running without a net. But I think you would just make any Microsoft executive shake in their boots because they're like, "What? You don't have our demo prepared? You're crazy." So it's fun to see, and of course, fun to be a part of too.
Well, we certainly appreciate you being here. We appreciate the support. We're actually closing in on 5 years in the blink of an eye of
Yeah,
365
crazy.
Deep Dive.
That's
So
great.
we'll maybe look at having a celebration as we get closer to that milestone.
I think you should call it the Mariana Trench episode. You've reached it.
365 Deep Dive in the Last Crusade.
That's great.
Well, no,
great.
this has been a great episode. Thank you so much for being here. I want to thank all of our friends from the community for joining in the conversation. It was super lively. Looking forward to more comments on both LinkedIn and YouTube. Stay tuned. We've got another episode coming up in December. We will be back with another episode of 365 Deep Dive. But once again, thank you, Mark, for being here. Thanks, everybody, and have a happy Thanksgiving if you're here in the U.S. And folks, we'll see you in the next one.
Thanks
Take
all.
care.